Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Giuseppe Grimaldi. The Father Joe podcast is proudly supported by Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield. The spring savings sales event is going on now at Star Lincoln, and that means additional savings on every Lincoln in stock. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, they treasure your time. Experience the Star treatment. If you're in the greater Detroit area and you're looking for a new Lincoln, then Star Lincoln is the only answer. Whether you crave a new Lincoln MKC, Lincoln MKX, the classic Lincoln Navigator, or the awesome Lincoln Nautilus, get the Star treatment. You deserve it. Give them a call, drop on by, and you'll see why. They've been in business for decades. Both Father Joe and I are driving the Lincoln MKC, and I love mine. In a hurry, shop online, starlincoln.com. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield, home of the Star treatment. I did the Giuseppe Grimaldi for a reason.
Although, I'm sure you have.
No, Giuseppe is not Joe, though, is it?
It's Joseph.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you are, but you weren't born Giuseppe.
Yes.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Get out of town.
Well, I can't go around saying my name is Giuseppe.
Why not?
I have a nephew, though. The family uses Giuseppe as his, and he's just a kid.
No kidding.
In New York City, yeah.
What do his friends call him, Giuseppe?
Sometimes Giusy or something like that. Yeah.
So you are Giuseppe Grimaldi.
Correct.
What is your middle name?
Luigi.
Are you kidding me?
Giuseppe Luigi Grimaldi.
Can I see the wine menu now, please? Wow.
Now, Giuseppe has a lot of nicknames, okay?
Uh-huh.
For example.
Yeah.
Pepe.
Why? Why Pepe?
Giuseppe and
so
Pepe.
Okay. This is all fitting together. Go ahead.
Pinot.
Yeah. As in Pinot Grigio?
Well, Pinot, in a way, yes.
Yeah.
It's spelled the same way.
Okay.
Pinot.
P-I-N-O-T?
No.
Just P-I-N-O.
That's French.
Okay. Oh, I see. All right.
But anyway, let's keep going.
That's why it's a rock and roller and a holy roller. I let him cross the T's and dot the I's.
We'll do the best we can.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is because of the fact that this past week there was an article not only in the newspapers, but also on WDIV Channel 4, locally here in Detroit, Michigan. Parishioners at that church, that being the Holy Family, are, well, I don't want to say up in arms, but they have signed a petition to keep their pastor, Padre Pino, as their pastor, because apparently he's turning 75 and he has to either elect to retire or become a senior priest. Now, there's a bit of a story about this Father Giuseppe. All right, the man that they call Padre Pino, his real name is, I'm going to say it the way I say it, then you correct me, okay? The faithful call him Padre Pino, but his real name is Reverend Giuseppe Liccardi.
Liccardi.
A Palermo-based priest who spoke no English when he arrived here in 2011. He was handpicked by the financial planner at Holy Family, who went to Rome and convinced Padre Pino to come be the pastor at Holy Family. Okay? It's a beautiful story.
It is.
He learned English on the spot. Not on the spot, over a period of time, but not unlike you when you were a young boy.
Correct.
He learned to speak English. Okay. So he's turning 75. He has to make this decision to retire or become a senior priest. Number one, maybe he wants to retire and go back to Italy.
That could easily be it. But, you know,
the parishioners don't want him to.
Yeah, but let me say this. He's made that decision beforehand because at 70, a priest can retire. And so once he retires and he's in good standing, he's operating and working and so on, then he's a senior priest. Okay, so basically for 5 years, he's been working even after he could have retired if he wanted. He's from a very beautiful, beautiful part of Sicily, which is called Monreale. In English, we would say Montreal. But Monreale is famous for its beautiful ceramics, and it's right not too far from Palermo. It's from the Archdiocese of Palermo. And so the business manager over at Holy Family had to negotiate his coming to the United States with the Archdiocese of Palermo. So he went there and just to see if he could get Father to come here. Somehow he must have known him. I don't know the details of the story,
right.
But from what I read, from what I see, they wanted him in particular. He had a certain charismatic appeal. The other thing, too, his name has an appeal, too. Pino is a common nickname for Giuseppe, which is Joseph. And the other thing, too, it sounds so much like the famous Italian saint, Padre Pio. So it has a ring to it, Padre Pino or Padre Pio. Padre Pio was a Capuchin priest who now a saint. Saint Pio Pius is the name, Pius in English we would say, but his name is Pio. Pino is just a nickname for Giuseppe.
All right, I'm going to connect these dots. I have to.
Yeah.
A little levity here.
Sure.
So technically, I can refer to you now as Padre Pino. I can, right?
Of course you can.
It's an interesting issue. Something's going on here. Apparently, they have 2,000 signatures already signed. And this fellow, Prevetti, said, without the priest, the church will close down. Apparently, in 2011, their pastor passed away. Yep. And that's how this search began to get Padre Pino. So they get Padre Pino. He's been here. Now this situation occurs where he's turning 75. He apparently wants to retire and go back. The parishioners don't want him to go back. Somehow Vigneron, our archbishop, is now involved. And the archbishop told Local 4 here in Detroit that Padre Pino has asked to retire at the age of 75. And the archdiocese is trying to decide whether to accept senior status or let him return him to Italy. So It's apparently all in Padre Pino's hands.
Of course it is. After 70, he can make a decision because he's a diocesan priest.
Well, these are decisions that you guys have to make.
Once you're 70.
Well, but they're also very difficult. That is kind of where I wanted to go because let's say you want to go back to Italy. You want to enjoy your later years, but your parishioners are counting on you, Padre Pino. We need you. We love you. You restored the church. Without you, they may take our church. The archdiocese says, no, that will not happen. But 2,000 strong, that's a healthy family using that church.
Yeah.
You have to make that decision. How do you lean, Father Joe?
Well, first of all, the archbishop makes the decision.
He will.
He will have to speak with him to see if his intent is strong enough, and he will allow him because he's already lasted 5 more years after his retirement. And see, you can retire at 70, and he's going to be 75. So he's put in 5 extra years. So it's the Archbishop of Detroit who will help him make that decision because it's the Archbishop of Detroit's responsibility. He's working in this diocese now. He may still be a member of the Archdiocese of Palermo, but he's working here. And so I'm sure through the kindness of the Archbishop here in Detroit, they'll have a good discussion and make a decision for what's good for himself, even though the local folks will think, oh, we can't survive without him.
Yeah.
Well, that's been said many times.
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, that's been said many times. But if it's good for the diocese, well, Bishop Vigneron's not going to force him to stay, that's for sure.
Right.
Regardless. And so it's a matter of if he wants to leave, he can leave.
Yeah, but Padre Pino, like I said, that's a lot. That's a heavy burden for him to have to carry. Like, hate to disappoint you folks, but I'm going home. Yeah. But, you'd expect the parishioners to understand his wishes.
Especially since he's done an extra 5 years.
And especially since Archbishop Vigneron has assured the parish that they will not close Holy Family.
Well, maybe they won't.
Well, he said they won't. He said they will not. Now, I would assume that given the worst case scenario that the padre leaves and another priest is brought in, would you come out of retirement and go down and be the... Of course, I'm kidding. Yeah.
No, but
they would still have a Padre Pino. They would still have an Italian.
That's right.
Speaks Italian.
But there were
still says a heck of a good Latin Mass. Just throwing these out there.
No, there were a number of Italian priests in the archdiocese because we have the missionaries, the Pime missionaries. They're here in Detroit. There's a big group of them, a fairly big group. And so if there is a need for someone who speaks Italian, but I suspect here we are, I don't know, I'm just thinking in the year 2019, I don't think we have that many recent immigrants that need to have someone who speaks Italian.
I agree.
Very often people do that for sentimental reasons, and so they would like to hear their language, spoken. It seems so much nicer and, in their ears because that's the language they heard as children. And so a lot of it has to do with sentimentality. Now, and no one is going to be cruel enough to say, cut that out. No, but they're going to have to ease them to give them an understanding of what's needed and also an understanding of the individual who has spent, I don't know how many years he's been here.
I think it's been about 8.
Oh, that's a very short period of time.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
So the archdiocese has people that speak Italian, there's no question. Whether or not they want to become pastors is another story. It's going to be up to him, basically. And I hate to say, I don't think it's going to be a cruel thing that he would have to do because he's going back to his roots. And
right.
There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Now, granted, he's leaving a certain group of people, but it's only been 8 years. So it's not like he was born here and raised with them. And the people will certainly get used to other pastors.
Well, going a little sideways with the topic, you said you've done a wedding at Holy Family.
Correct.
Beautiful church. I have not been. Is it nice?
Oh, it's very pretty, yes.
Uh-huh. All right, so it's a destination for the mass mobs. They enjoy going there.
Yes, not that big a church, but it's very pretty.
But apparently well attended, enough to have 2,000 parishioners.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been decided, but we'll follow that. Staying with pastors and different churches, you, when you were in Hawaii, you were the pastor of how many churches? Just the one?
Maybe 2. One for a very short period of time.
Okay.
And another one for 6 years. But I was not a pastor because they got me for administration. And so I was in the diocesan administration. So I didn't have a parish. I operated as what they call a vicar general and a judicial vicar. So those were offices in the chancery. You don't have a parish. And basically you say mass at different places throughout the diocese. I had a parish for actually 5 years. It was in Kailua in Hawaii, beautiful church, St. John Vianney. And then I was at Sacred Heart for a short period of time. But those are the only 2 places that I was. It was difficult to leave those places, but when I left St. John Vianney, it was to go to Rome, so that wasn't too difficult. You're going to start a new career in a way. You're going to be studying canon law. You're moving to another country. Then it was time to retire. And so I was 71, I believe. And so that's when I decided to go work elsewhere. I asked the bishop if I could do that, and he said yes. So I went to work in California, in Central California. So it was in the Santa Cruz area. I was there as a chaplain of a hospital, Dominican hospital. And then not too long after I got there, like 3 months, it was Holy Thursday, and the bishop called me and they said, they need you at Carlitos. And Carlitos is a small town, if you want.
Yeah, I know.
Not far from Santa Cruz.
That was one of your favorite stops, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's a little bit south. So I spent 3.5 years there as a pastor.
As the pastor?
Yeah.
You ran the show. You did the books, you said the masses.
Correct. Yeah, where I even started a Spanish mass. So it was kind of an interesting place to be. Very, very rural because it was in the middle of the produce area where you had all these different berries, the Driscoll family.
Right.
You had the Martinelli family. You had apples everywhere. You had blueberries. And olali berries, which are not too common here, but I don't think they're much different from a cross between a marionberry and a blueberry, and combination of things, the way they would join things
Love them
together.
on my cereal, that's all I know.
Yeah, great. So then I decided to really retire and came to Detroit.
That's a joke.
And I came to Detroit.
Were
and
you
asked,
really retired?
That's right.
Yeah.
But that's not really. I often joke around about really retiring, and I don't know if ever that's going to come about, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, if I have anything to say about it, it will. They'll give us all the free time in the world to get in front of these mics and never shut up.
No.
You won't be running to a wedding, a funeral, or a feast day.
Wouldn't that be great? I would love that in a way. But
well,
okay.
you were telling me when you went to New York to visit your family that you stayed at the brother's house.
Right.
And you enjoyed yourself there.
You know why? I experienced something that was unique and different. I don't think too many people would go to New York and spend the 10 days living in a nursing home. But it was an interesting experience, primarily because I knew a lot of those brothers that were there 50, 60 years ago, and I hadn't seen them in that long. So it was great to be there, get reacquainted. Some of them were very, very sick and couldn't even respond, but they did their best.
I think that's fabulous. So you can see, okay, I can think locally here in the area. I'll name the churches that just come to mind: St. Regis Holy Name, St. Hugo, Queen of Martyrs, the Shrine. Those are very nice churches.
St. Hugo's?
I thought I mentioned that. I apologize. St. Hugo's, very well attended, very well supported, and they've had pastors for quite a period of time.
Sure.
The separation of a pastor from his flock can probably sometimes be very, very difficult, and sometimes people are not all that upset to say so long to Padre Pino.
Well, Padre Pino's
I'm not talking, I was just plugging in a name.
Yeah, but that's a special case because...
Well, let's leave Padre Pino out of it. Let's just say sometimes the faithful may say, another pastor might be a better page in our chapter here. Maybe it's better if that father was to move along.
Well, leave them wanting more.
Yeah.
Don't overstay.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Now, there's questions about...
That's curious. I've never...
There are questions...
It's radio's mantra, too, you know, for real. Oh, very much so.
Yeah, leave them wanting more.
Yeah.
But basically, there are general rules about the amount, the length of time a person stays as a pastor. Very often, the diocese decides that a pastor is appointed for 6 years, and then that can be renewed, but only for another 6 years, and that would be it.
Oh, really?
Now, the reason for that makes sense to me, because after 6 years, you want to negotiate with the pastor on how things went, how things are going. Do you want to continue here? Do you want to leave here? And so if all goes well, this meeting between the archbishop and the pastor, well, then they may be renewed for another 6 years, but usually no more after 6 years. Now, I don't mean to use the word grandfather, but in certain cases where people have stayed for 30 years or are staying for 30 years and plus, they grandfathered in the rule that once you were appointed a pastor, well, very often they could leave you there for as long as things went well. Now, the other thing, too, is like once a pastor is appointed, he's supposed to really dedicate himself to those people. He becomes a father to those people.
Yes.
And so to be jerked around from one place to another is not a great thing. And it should not be used as a stepping stone where, you know, you appoint somebody here, see if he does well, so this way we could point him to a better place, whatever that means. That's not the way it's supposed to be, because you want somebody to be a father, to be connected to the people, to be able to help those people that need. You know, it's one of these things where the times and the rules change. There's no question. So we do have pastors in this archdiocese that have been around for more than 12 years in one parish.
Uh-huh.
But ordinarily, it's 6 and 6. Huh?
I didn't know there were term limits.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Generally
speaking.
Yeah. And in some cases, for example, somebody is in for 3 years. Well, they say it's a 3-year term. So this way, if someone really messes things up after 3 years, he could leave gracefully because he finished his 3-year term.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it sounds to me, if I were the priest and only got a 3-year term, that they were saying, we're not sure you're good enough yet, Ken, but
that's right.
We'll throw Father Ken in there and see how he does. And if after 3 years we were wrong and he's actually pretty dang good. Final question for you. One of the guys that I really like on the radio ends his program every day with his crew. It's Dan Patrick, and he calls the crew of guys that work with him the Danettes. And it's a 3-hour program, and he always ends the program by going around the room saying, what did you learn today? Meaning from the show. So today I learned from the show that the Catholic Church and pastors in a perfect world have term limits of 2 6-year terms. Okay, I know that. Going to that final area I wanted to go into, an assistant priest. We're going to have a graduation here in June. That young man will be assigned to a church as an assistant, correct?
Correct.
All right. Could be for a year, could be for 2 years, could be for how many years?
Well, usually they try to give the young priest who are just finishing their seminary work and they're going to be assigned to a parish, they usually give them 2 years in one place and 2 years in another place. Why? To give them experience with different kinds of parishes. And once they prove themselves as people who can take over, be in charge, lead a group of parishioners, then he might be appointed a pastor, depending on the number of priests that are available for that kind of work today. So, there was a time when we were overflowing in big numbers with priests, and so it took a long time before you could become a pastor because they were waiting in line.
Yeah.
But now it's not as bad, and so you have people, after experiencing 2 different parishes, you almost expect that the next assignment will be as a pastor. You see, when they assign people, you try to meet the needs of the parish as well as the needs of the priest. You try to match them. It's not always going to be 100% working out well, but you try to match the two, the personality of the priest with the needs of the parish.
Oh.
And then they will say, okay, there are different aspects to it, is what I'm trying to say.
Final question. Could an assistant in Detroit get his first job as a pastor in Alpena?
Ordinarily, you always have to use that word because there's always an exception here and there.
Darn Catholics.
And so, ordinarily, when you are incarnated into a diocese,
I know what it means.
You work within the diocese.
Okay.
It's going to be rare that a person who is in the diocese or the archdiocese of Detroit, that he's going to be sent to another diocese. It could be the Diocese of Lansing, the Diocese of
Grand Rapids.
The Grand Rapids. Yeah. But ordinarily, you stay within your diocese. That's not true of bishops. When a bishop is appointed, it could be anywhere, actually. Again, they try to match the personality to the people they're going to deal with.
So if you're good on a boat, you could be in Harbor Springs.
You could be.
You could be.
A friend of mine is Bishop Reika is a friend of mine. He's the bishop up there now.
Not a bad assignment.
That's the Bishop of Gaylord.
Yeah, they tell me the winters are long, but nonetheless, the summers are wonderful. And
he's Bishop of Gaylord. So.
Yeah, try the fruit. We'll be here all day Sunday, all right? Well, that's it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ken Calvert alongside the good one, Padre Pino, Giuseppe Grimaldi. We'll see you next time on the Padre Pino podcast. Boy, that's just alliteration like you read about.
I look forward to it.
See you next time, everybody.
I look forward to it. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.